Hey guys, Chairman here with a deck profile for the 1-0 Hayasaka build that was featured in my tier list video. And I'm really excited to talk about this because I think it's an alternate take on Kaguya as a set. It's a take that not many people have been experimenting with or trying, and I think it actually works really well. It still utilizes all the strong cards of Kaguya, but it does so in a completely different fashion. And I think it's quite competitive, so I'm really excited to share this with you guys. So here we have the foils for the main engine of the deck. Most people don't even, they don't get to see these. I just wanted to show them off. I won't be using foils in my deck profile because I don't have oversleeves with me, but I just wanted to show you guys what they look like. Now, before we begin, I have a special announcement I'd like to make. So I recently got partnered with Tressla's Collectibles to be a content creator for their channel. I'm really excited about this opportunity. And since Kaguya just released in English, we did a number of videos, or we're doing a number of videos over on that channel. And one of them happens to be the Kaguya meta deck profile. And this one is my deck list. It's my video. I did it for them, so you guys can go over there and check it out. And because of this, I won't have a meta deck profile on this channel. Instead, please check out that video, especially if you're new to Kaguya, because in that video, I go over everything from the ground up. Go over all the effects, go over everything, the winning image of the deck. So if you're completely new to the set, I highly suggest you check out that video. For the purposes of this video, I'm going to assume that you guys all know what Kaguya does. You guys are familiar with the cards. So I won't be going over every single card. I'm just going to be talking about how I put the deck together and how the deck works, what are its strengths, weaknesses, and stuff like that. So let's start with the core of the deck, which is the 1-0 Hayasaka combo and the corresponding climax for books. I really think this combo is really, really good. Not because of the book. I mean, book's not very good. And not because of the combo itself, actually. I mean, the combo itself is pretty good because it's a search combo, right? Searching is always really nice. And also, it's 6k cross turn, which is really, really nice to have. But what makes this combo really good is because we can get it out every single turn with this back row. So the 0-0 Kaguya, right? It resonates with the event. Pay 1, you can either search it out of your deck or salvage the combo from your waiting room and give something 1000 power. And this just allows us to do this combo every single turn that we want, right? So we're always going to get this card back. And if we have the climax, we can continue to combo. And the problem with most level 1 combos is that you basically get one turn to combo off at level 1. And then afterwards, you need to get all your resources on that turn. And then you need to have those resources last you for like sometimes the rest of the game, right? Whereas this deck, I don't need to combo off at level 1. I don't need a full turn combo level 1. I don't need a triple combo level 1. I can just play as many as I get. And the next turn I get them back, and if I have the climax, we combo off again. Yeah, so it's a really aggressive deck where you want to keep playing climaxes turn after turn after turn. And you apply a lot of pressure to your opponent. So I think this package here is very strong. We're only playing 2 copies of the Kaguya level 0 because it's pretty easy to get this card out. And we're playing 3 copies of the event. I used to play 2 copies of the event. Normally we can get it pretty easily with this event searcher, but I decided to bump it up to 3 because I noticed that on some of my games, I would be overhand, and I'd be like, wow, if I played an event, I could have gotten a free stock. And so having more events allows you to play the events more freely in the situations where you want to play it. Also, the twin drive is really nice because sometimes you'll be really compressed, and you're like, oh man, I'm going to trigger a climax. So just play the event preemptively, and then when you do trigger the climax, you can pay it out immediately and get that advantage. So now we have the core of the deck, and we want to see how we can maximize this core. And since the idea is we want to play this climax combo every single turn, what better way to help us get it every single turn than to play soul gate climaxes, right? So when you trigger this, you can grab this, and since you're always going to have this, you just get a climax combo turn after turn after turn. And yeah, that's what this deck's all about, right? So since we're running the climax, we can afford to run the combo as well. And yeah, we don't need more than 2 copies of this climax combo because 3 is kind of overkill. You never really want 3. You'll basically always be overhand if you play 3 of this card. And 2 is fine. You only really resolve 1. Maybe 2 if you really need a mill or if you're super low on hand. But generally speaking, 1's fine. And we also run 1 copy of the climax swap to help us get the right climax, right? So if we have this and we need this because we want to reverse and search, then we can just swap into it. So now with all this, we have a ton of hand, right? We have this gives us hand, and then this gives us hand, and this gives us hand. So how do we convert this hand into meaningful advantage, right? Or other resources? And the best way to do it is with stock healers. So heal to stock is great effect to have. We run 4 copies of the K to do that. Right? It converts our hand into damage lead, into extra damage because we're hitting extra with a 2 soul beater, and we're also getting a stock back, or we're converting hand to stock, right? So normally this would cost 2, now it costs 1. So that is a stock kind of, it's a resource conversion that's beneficial to us. Okay, so now we need finishers because both our climaxes are locked, so we can't play climax-based finishers, we need climaxless finishers. Lucky for us, Kaguya has some really good climaxless finishers. The double rare Shirogane and the 3-2 TD Kaguya. They're really good, they're big, and then they also hit for nice small amounts of extra instances of damage. So it's great for closing out games when you're winning by a lot, but you can't really like one turn your opponent from 3-0. So because of that, we need to make sure we're winning the damage lead by the time we hit level 3. So the early play caves help us, but since we need to index into that even more, I'm running 4 copies of the early play Hayasaka to continue to widen that damage gap at level 2, so that when we do hit level 3, our opponent's already at like 3-2, 3-3, right? And then at 3-2, 3-3, this can finish pretty reliably. Yeah, and by doing this, it's also a different early play condition. So if we miss this condition, we're going to get this condition anyways. We can still get the heal. It's great. It's also blue, helps us with our experience and color requirements. So this is basically the core of the deck in terms of game plan, right? So from the beginning, we want to just snowball the game, get our advantages, get our climax combo, and then just continue to build resources turn after turn after turn. Just continue to play climaxes, push damage, stock clocking pretty early since we get all this resources. And at level 2, we want to early play heal for the rest of the game. Just continue to build that damage lead, widen that damage gap, and then push our opponents to 3 while staying at 2. And then once we hit 3, we just want to close out the game nice and reliably with good old faithful. All right, so now that we have the core of the deck, or I guess the extended core of the deck, let's just flesh this out with good Kaguya cards. So 4K, 4 Chica, 1 stock swap. We don't need to talk about this, right? It's just good cards. Okay, so we need another Kaguya back row in addition to this back row to fulfill power requirement on the 1-0 Hayasaka. And we're missing some mill in this deck, right? So this deck, currently, it might be a little slow first deck. We need some mill. So the best back row Kaguya for this is this Brainstormer. Actually, the best one might be the Spammable Brainstormer. You could run that instead. But I actually like this one because you get the mill on play. And then, so on the first turn you play it, you get the Brainstorm 5. And if you do hit a climax, you can mill even more. So sometimes your milling gets really rough if you brainstorm and you hit like 3 climaxes and you're like, oh man, I have to like search or salvage 3. Now my conversion is really bad. This allows you to dig 9 if you hit that 3 climaxes, right? So this definitely kind of fixes your like crazy brainstorm numbers by itself. So I think this is probably the best brainstorm to play. Yeah, and it also just has that mill by itself. Okay, and then we run 1 copy of the drop salvage from the trial deck, mostly because we don't really have good salvaging options. We can still salvage these with the resonance, but we can't really salvage anything else in this deck. So running 1 copy of the drop salvage. It's also a 3K body with a 2 or less stock, or 3 or less stock. Wow, this card's kind of good. Running 1 copy of the, where did I put this? 1 copy of the back row 2-1. It works well with the books that we run, so we turn these books into red gates when we have this in the back row, and also it helps buff level 3s, especially since we're early playing and we do want them to stay around if possible. It's a lot harder to remove 12K bodies than 10K bodies. And finally, we run 2 copies of the 2-1 free fresh counter. Free fresh counter, I've talked about this in my other video. I really like it. It's really nice, gets you out of a bad situation very easily. We don't need a lot of stock going to level 3. We actually just need 5 stock to, we actually only need 5 stock to do Shirogane TD Kaguya and resolve both effects. So we don't really need that much stock. So feel free to use the free fresh counter pretty aggressively to mitigate damage and to get good refresh timings. And that's the deck. I guess it's kind of looking a little messy because I just talked about the cards and put them in the order that I talked about. So let's just, there we go. That's a lot better. All right, before we close, I just want to address 2 potential concerns of the deck. The first one is deck speed. Does this deck mill fast enough? And the answer to that is kind of. So Kaguya does have an issue with deck speed. However, deck speed is pretty flexible in terms of how you manage deck speed. For example, one of the reasons why this deck can still get by even with not that many strong mill options is because of how many strong search options it has. Both this 0-0 Hayasaka and this 0-0 Kaguya can search from the deck. And searching is better than milling, because when you mill, you have a chance to mill climaxes, which ruins your compression. But when you search, you definitely don't take climaxes out of your deck, which only improves your compression. So If you can search a Hayasaka out of your deck with this and then search an event, that's a mill 2 that is guaranteed not to hit climaxes, right? So depending on how well you utilize your search effects, you could get into a state where, yeah, you don't actually need to mill that much more for your first deck speed to be quite fast. The second thing we do to help is definitely this brainstorm. It helps a lot with deck speed because if we miss, then our deck's really compressed. And if we hit, then we can dig even faster into our deck so that we can get through the first deck quickly. And finally, the last thing for first deck speed is mulligan. Mulligan is potentially a free mill 5. So sometimes people don't mulligan a lot because they see a hand that's playable and they're like, wow, this is a great hand, I'll keep. But when you keep a playable hand in this game, you're denying yourself the ability to mill, especially if you're playing a deck that isn't that good at milling first deck. So with this deck, I actually only keep very key cards. So I only keep this, I only keep this, and I only keep this. I ditch all my Hayasakas because I don't need those, and then I keep the Climax. So by doing that, I just keep a turn 1 play and then the K Chikas because they'll always give me cards. And we're running 20 zeros here. So even if we ditch some zeros, we'll draw more playables. It's like, that's not a problem. By doing that, we index into additional free mills. So that helps us with our first deck speed. You can even ditch the events. Yeah, I don't keep the events because we can always get the events later. Or we draw into more of them. So I hope that answers the question about deck speed. I actually think this deck, it's obviously not amazing at deck speed compared to like other decks that just get to mill for free, but you can manage, and searching is pretty underrated when it comes to deck speed. The second thing is, why are we not running 1-0 counters in this deck? And this is pretty simple. It's because we want our Hayasakas to die. Because if they have to put resources to reversing our Hayasakas, chances are we can get the reverse on the swing around. Especially since we can pump enough power into the Hayasaka that, yeah, we can get the reverse. If the counter would have saved the Hayasaka, then we can get the reverse next turn with the cards in this deck. And it's actually more expensive to use a counter to save a Hayasaka than it is for us to pay one resonant and get it back. And that's kind of the idea of the deck, is that we just want to farm them, and then if we get farmed, we don't care because we just get all the cards back. And even our early plays, if they die, great. We just get them back again and we can heal again. So we actually want to recur all the on-play effects. There's no reason to protect anything. We're actually only running the refresh counter for the purpose of refreshing and potentially protecting in terms of like if we want to get rid of our opponent's card more than we want to save our own card, then yeah, the counter is good. Otherwise, yeah, we just want to keep playing our cards, and if they live, that's a free +1. We just take it, right? We just smile and take it. So yeah, I hope that answers everything about this deck. Let me know in the comments below if you have any other questions and what deck you want to see next. I have a few more deck profiles on the pipeline, but after those, I'll be down to talk about anything. So yeah, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.